Media Talks, the podcast that helps to better understand the world of media and video advertising.
Hello and welcome to the fourth edition of Media Talks and the last one for this year 2021. For this festive edition, I'm truly delighted to welcome Thomas Bremond, SVP and CRO International at FreeWheel. Bonjour Thomas, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Bonjour Emmanuel.
Thomas, I don't think we need to really present you. And so rather than going through what you've done in the past and so on, I thought that to make things a little different, I would ask you just if you could give us three key moments in your career that you believe had a decisive impact in your journey.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sure. It's always an interesting question to reflect. I would say the first moment that really had an impact in my career was actually 20 years ago, almost to the day, which I was living in London at the time, and the company that I was working for, a company some of you may know, and you may know Manu, Enron, went bankrupt, literally, around this time. And it had a significant impact because obviously one day to the next I was without a job, but also because there was such a meteoric rise very quickly and such a also as meteoric fall that you learn not to take anything for granted, right? When these things happen. So that was kind of the first really, my first job, first experience, pretty drastic. I wouldn't say the second one was, a few years after that, for another job, I moved to Los Angeles, and I had never lived in such a big city, but also such a buoyant city, and that made me realize that I was actually a fan of anything that was media, right? Generally speaking, I became almost addicted to technology for media. It was a small company, but still, you came to the realization that you could do a lot of things through technology and media, and that it could be both passion, sort of incredibly rewarding, and also become a true passion. So that was really kind of a turning point in my career, moving to LA and kind of starting a company there. And then finally, I want to say the third moment is I joined FreeWheel 7.5 years ago. And interestingly enough, the week that I joined, FreeWheel was being bought by Comcast. And, for me, it was, how do you cope with such a quick change? I know a lot of people have made lots of stories about acquisitions and things. For me, it wasn't about acquisition. I was starting a new job at this company I'd read everything about, but which was still a startup, and then moving to a company that had just been acquired by Comcast and doing all the things that we all know we've done. But it was incredibly humbling, but also fascinating, exciting to be joining at such a time. So really, those are three. I mean, there's many others, but if I have to remember three for this particular time, those are the three I would recall.
Right. Thanks for sharing these, Thomas. And I think that's probably something that we're going to come back to. This is probably, the acquisition of Comcast, because this is a special edition. It's the end of the year, and God knows what year it was. And so I thought I wanted to go back. I wanted to go on a journey, and a journey back to the future. And if you agree, I wanted to go and travel across time, going back to yesterday as our first stop, and then returning to the present and finish with tomorrow. So if you're ready, we're probably going to go and embark in our DeLorean, or maybe for us, Thomas, because we're French, we should be in a Renault 4, and go back in time to probably around the time of the acquisition of Comcast back in 2015, 2014. And my first question was just about what have we learned in the last sort of past 5 to 6 years, and what have been the kind of the most striking moment in the media industry. Maybe I'll add another question later, but maybe let's start with those ones.
Sure. I'll speak. I can't, it would be a very long conversation if we decide to speak about the vast media industry. So we'll try to focus on things that we know, right, Manu? And humbly kind of take that journey together. But if we come back to, the annual sort of end of year event that you and I have done a ton of, and 5, 6 years, or even 7 years when I joined the company, the problems and the opportunity that existed in front of TV were vastly different, but more generally the same. And I'll say that, at the time, what we were looking to do was look at video and the new non-linear videos, call it that way, or the evolution of the broadcast world, and how you would monetize that in a way that was different from your traditional sort of display world, right? We all knew that video would be big and that video would be different, but we also knew that, video was a big opportunity, but that it needed to be treated in a very specific way. So when we spoke with many of the large media community that was trying to monetize video, we quickly realized that one of the problems, we needed to solve was making sure that the advertising experience for users would be non-intrusive, would be in relation with the content that we're watching, would be in relation with the device and who was watching. And that was a big thing that had not existed before. And I believe that because some of these things have been done right, by us, but also by other people, we've been able to showcase and prove the power of video, right? And make TV, if you will, very powerful and continue to be very powerful in the broader sort of video space. And so that's been sort of, I think, a journey that has taken us, some time to get right. And we're there, and we are, you see a lot of platforms now that have been born, purely on AVOD, and others, of course, on SVOD, but for the simple reason that it's become acceptable and, frankly, a very good experience for a customer or a user like you and I to watch video in outside of our main device. And so that's been a very good success, and again, a key achievement from this industry of the past 6 years.
So technology played an important role here.
So when I joined, everybody was trying to move away from display advertising and sort of embarking on this new journey from video. But the tools that were at people's disposal, at big media groups' disposal, were still very much media focused, sort of display focused, as opposed to TV focused. And, everybody has learned that tech, creating tech for TV is not easy, right? It's not something that is for the faint of heart. But if you do it right, it works and it grows TV. But we have to be careful and always remind ourselves that, it's not display, it's TV, right? And I'm sure we cover this as we go along the path to the future. But in a time where TV was entirely linear, bringing technology that suited the evolution of TV was very much, front and center, without even thinking about the methods, the different methods of trading and how that's evolved over the past 5, 6 years.
Maybe if we move, and we went through, we're still in the past, and we've went through a kind of a rough 18 months. What are some of the and TV has changed quite radically over the last sort of couple of years. What are sort of the learnings from your perspective?
Well, I mean, 18 chaotic months aside, because let's be honest, like whilst we need to learn a lot about how we behave as consumers, how we behave as humans, just generally speaking, if we look at our industry, there's been an acceleration of what I would refer to as two factors. One, TV consumption. Yes, it is a fact that we're all connected now, and therefore the explosion of something that we've referred to as CTV or connected TV has had a massive impact in our world and our just general ecosystem world. Um, but also, that has led to a massive automation of the industry, right? If you think about the complexity that this has removed, right? Because everything is now digital, right? We have evolved from a world that had the vast majority of its consumption in the linear world, where it's a very technically complicated world, to something that is much easier to control and to manage. And that has accelerated the transition to new methods of trading, to new transaction types, to new people buying TV and things like that. So it's been incredibly interesting. And that's been a key learning, frankly, of the last 2 years is not only has our habit of watching TV changed, the way our industry has coped with this change has been rapid as well.
So let's go back to today, here and now. What would you say are the sort of the main challenges for the premium video ecosystem, and what should broadcasters and probably marketers, and I mean by marketers the brands and the agencies, um, what should they what should they think about?
No, look, that's always the huge question, one that we spend a lot of time trying to solve in various forums and conversations. I would say that if you think about the conversation we just had around what's changed in the last 18 months or what's accelerated, it's also particularly important to make sure that we're not accelerating, at speed that get out of control, right? Because TV is still very complex. Let's not kid ourselves. There's still rules which are there for good reasons. You can't broadcast things that shouldn't be broadcast at the wrong time in front of the wrong people. There are rules that have existed for a very long time for the right reasons. And the danger there is, because we're moving away from the main screen that has always been the corner of the living room, and because we're moving to portable devices, to small screens, to portable screens, that all of a sudden TV goes away, and what's made TV great with its protections and its rules and regulations and opportunities goes away and becomes a free-for-all. That's the danger that something out of control could be. And I'm not saying just from a content perspective, but also from the methods of trading perspective. I mean, you and I spend a lot of time talking to various constituents, whether buyers and sellers of advertising on TV. And the biggest thing we hear is, yes, everything must become easier to trade, but we also must maintain the controls. We also must make sure that we are in a position to guarantee an advertiser that they will come in the right time after the right ad break. And, we have to be careful that whilst TV must be easier to buy, that it doesn't become like display, right? That it doesn't become this environment where both the buyers and sellers aren't creating the best environment for us, users or audiences of content. Data is providing a great opportunity. Let's be careful that all of a sudden we don't use that to create these various sort of methods of trading again that have been flourishing in display and aren't necessarily great for premium video as we know it. And that's the danger of this acceleration of all screen, all device, go go go. Everything goes 100 miles an hour, right? We need to pause and reflect a little bit because of our complexity. Otherwise, we could crush all the good things that have happened in the last 18 months.
It's interesting you say that, and this is something we actually talked about in a previous podcast about broadcasters taking the time, and it is difficult to admit, particularly in the industry, but so important when it is for the right reasons. So let's continue our journey, and this time moving into the future, our sort of final destination. How should we, as an industry, and how are you, as FreeWheel, responding to the challenges that the premium ecosystem is facing?
Um, that question sort of keeps me awake often. Well, not really, but it's a good expression for it. Um, but it does beg the question, like, what can we do to sort of keep growing this business, which frankly is magnificent. I mean, TV is great, but it is suffering from competition, which has made it easy, right? If you're talking about buyers earlier, if you're a buyer today, it's easy to buy on platforms. It's easy. They've made this easy. So TV premium video needs to make itself easy to buy. And again, I'm not saying it should make itself like the Far West, everything, biddable in that kind of environment, because there has to be ways to make sure that the video experience remains. And so from one end of the spectrum, which is the danger that we just spoke about, some of the challenges that people have to be careful, to what we could do, I think the way our industry needs to go is make TV easy to buy, which will inherently go through a need for closer collaboration between the players and between the entities that sell premium video, whether through unification of their platforms, whether it is through a better coordination around measurement, which I know is a big issue and a big conversation. But at the end of the day, simplicity wins. Simplicity always wins, and making it easy for buyers to buy, starting with plan, forecast, and buy is absolutely paramount for buyers in a way that looks at the entire ecosystem, because TV is a gigantic pool of inventory if you think about it. And you add the power of data on top of it, and it becomes this massive inventory, which will be great for buyers, right? Which will be great for buyers when it is easy to buy. So let's make sure that we focus on that.
Simplicity will always win. I like that, Thomas, and I think you're absolutely right. So I guess this will be the sort of the next endeavor to make this unique inventory of premium video easy to access, buy, and transact on. Well, that's it. We have reached our final destination. Thank you, Thomas, for your inspiring insights on this journey. Clearly, some challenging time ahead, but I think that makes it all the more exciting. Before we leave, I like to end my podcast on a slightly different note. So, to continue with the tradition, I just wanted to ask you if you could share with us something that you really care about.
Well, lots of things, Manu. I like to think I deeply care about lots of things, but one thing, as we're recording this podcast, and we're just sort of on the tail end of COP26. We just happened in Glasgow a few weeks ago, and it's been going on for 2 weeks. And yes, some people were hoping that a milestone agreement would be reached, and frankly, I wish our industry would be more in sync with other industries and trying to make sure that we, deeply care together about these climate change issues. I mean, we're lucky to work for a company, and that is a sister company to Sky, and Sky was super active at COP, and it made me feel very proud, but also realize that Sky is a very single voice in this today, and that we need to accompany them much more than we have in the past along this journey of transforming our business once again.
I could not agree more. And thank you for bringing this up, Thomas. Sustainability is something that I'm also very passionate about. And there's so much that needs to be done. And this is so critical and such an important topic, which we need to tackle head on. And in fact, contrary to what we were mentioning earlier, at this time, I think velocity will be essential. All right. Well, thank you again, Thomas. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Manu.
And thank you to all our listeners. I shall wish everyone a wonderful festive civil end of the year break, and we are very much looking forward to returning in 2022. Until then, goodbye.